Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Thursday, August 14th. Derek Van Riper, Saris, Trevor May here with you on this episode. We got some baseball news you should know. Third day in a row where we have some Josh Hader news. And yeah, it's not good because how would it possibly be good? It started off as something bad. We'll get you that information here in just a few minutes. We do have Dylan Cruz coming off the IL. A couple of big topics today. We're going to check in on the Phillies. I saw recently in our friend Joe Sheehan's newsletter, the Phillies were his top-ranked team, looking at everybody and where they stand right now. So we'll dissect that, figure out what makes this Phillies team so good, what's working, maybe what's not, how they could be vulnerable. We're going to nerd out on a few starting pitchers that are intriguing for the final 6-7 weeks of the season, guys getting opportunities to start, some of them in new places. And we're going to talk about a couple other little things along the way here. I've got some debuts coming up, actually. We got Owen Casey, who's up today for the Cubs. Nolan McLean is coming up this weekend. So a jam-packed show here on this Thursday. Let's start with that Josh Hader news. Josh Hader is getting a second opinion on his shoulder. Trevor, of the times someone got a second opinion on an injury, what percentage of those times did the news turn out to be good after the second opinion?
I would say less than 5% there was good news the second time. Usually it's confirming what was already found. I don't like shoulder. I don't like the conversation about shoulder, but at the same time, you got to look at like Hader's career up to this point and his relative really good track record of being healthy. Like that just doesn't, that doesn't last forever. It never has. So there's going to be something at some point where we miss time. You just hope it's nothing crazy. And Chris Sale did the same, like for 9 years, right? I know recently I think if you ask anybody in the last 5 years about Chris Sale, they'd say he's hurt a lot. But like up until that point, he was throwing 200 innings every single year. So it's just part of it. You got to, at some point, some stuff of this happens. But yeah, having to go get a second opinion or feel the desire to do so is usually not a good sign.
Also,
it's got to be arguing about like surgery, right? It's like,
yeah, usually it comes to second opinions like, is this like an injection situation or is this a surgery situation?
Yeah.
Especially with the Astros, some of the injuries they've had the last 2 seasons, the Kyle Tucker leg injury, the Yordan Alvarez hand injury, the way those have been handled too. I think if you had anything that was concerning you, you'd err on the side of the second opinion right now, just based on how those injuries were handled by that organization. We did see Brian Abreu get the save on Wednesday night, so everyone moving up a chair as we expected as far as the bullpen hierarchy goes. There is some good news on Yordan Alvarez, too. He's scheduled to take live BP this weekend. He started ramping up activity last weekend, so maybe we will see Yordan Alvarez back before the end of August.
He should look into a different bat grip, different bat handle. Like he should look in the axe or something, because this is not the first time he's dealt with this hand thing. He's dealt with this hand thing for years, and there's something about the way he swings and his bat handle that doesn't seem to like go together. Even now that they've been like, okay, you can swing, it's been slow.
I thought they were like injuries. They're not impact, so it's not him getting hit on the hand. It's like swing use injuries type things.
There's
right?
Something about the way he swings. I mean, it's high bat speed, But I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like, does he hold it off the edge? That
Maybe.
Usually leads to hamate injuries. And so I wonder if there's something going on there. I would look into that in the offseason if I was him, but because this is not the first time the hand issues cropped up.
Man, it seems like this is by far the worst that it's been, just as far as the amount of time that he's missed this year. I think previously it's been something he's been mostly able to play through. So even that, it's like, well, you lose 10, 20, 30% of your production along the way. That's not what you want either. So yeah, we'll see what kind of adjustments Yordan Alvarez can make. And the AL West is shaping up to be fun. The Mariners right now are in a delay with the Orioles. They got walked off on Wednesday night. But you look at the way that division's shaping up, the Rangers are still alive. They could play really well for what's left of the season and actually make things interesting, get a third team into the mix. And the Astros have been hit by injuries. The Mariners look like a team that have more things going right, even as Cal Raleigh kind of cools off a little bit in the second half. Randy Rosarena's hitting. Julio looks more like Julio. How do you guys feel about the AL West right now? If you had to call it today, who would be your prediction to come away with that division crown?
You go first,
Well, with Javier coming back, Luis Garcia right there. But their dude in center field, the Seattle Mariners guy in center field, Julio, is white hot. Right now, the projections
in August? No way.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The projections have them tied 90 and 72, both of them over at Fangraphs. I'm going to take the Mariners. Better vibe.
Let's do it. I'll take the Mariners too. Hopeful thinking. Something's got to give. I think that I think that actually Houston seems to have the injury bug, and they have guys like some really important guys down, and like you said, Yordan's slow to come back. We don't know what it's going to look like even right away, because usually when you come back this slowly, you're not just off to the races right out the gate. The hater stuff's concerning. They've already lost Isaac Paredes, possibly into next year, because it's like the worst hamstring strain I've ever heard of. Like they have a lot of. I think their additions were good. I think the Jesus Sánchez was a good pickup, and I think they addressed some of their stuff. But I just think the Mariners are hot. They also addressed theirs a little bit better, and
I guess Bryce Miller's coming back next week.
That can't hurt.
Could be underrated important, because the Logan Evans, Emerson Hancock part of the rotation hasn't kept up the bargain as much. So if Bryce Miller comes back and is Bryce Miller, then they could get really rolling.
Yeah, I think I'll make it 3 of 3. But what's interesting is without having the game 163 scenarios anymore, their remaining head-to-head matchups, like they've got a 3-game series left, that could be critically important because they've split so far 5-5 in their first 10 games this year. So it may come down to that as a tiebreaker based on the projections and how everything has come together so far in that division. I mentioned this one up top. Dylan Cruz finally back from the 60-day IL. Feels like he's been out all season because he almost has been. Nathaniel Lowe DFA'd in the corresponding move. One of those guys that I hadn't really thought about what he was doing this season because I don't think about the Nationals very often. And usually I think of Lowe as that sort of metronome 10, 15%, but better than league average type hitter. He hasn't been that guy this year. The K rate's up at 26.5%. He's got a sub 300 OBP. Still seems like the kind of guy that a team that needs a left-handed bat will scoop up as a free agent, though, for the final few weeks of the season.
I think one of the things is, he lost some bat speed, went from 73.3 this last year to 72.7. He's getting close to about, 50th percentile bat speed. He's always been good at not chasing, but I think the one thing that has frustrated people that have worked with Nate Lowe is just that he has his approach and he hasn't changed it. Like he's so opposite field minded that I think that it might become easier over time to pitch to him, because you're just like, I know he's trying to go over there. If someone's just trying to do one thing, I have a feeling that it just gets easier and easier to execute on him and have a strategy against him. Maybe Trevor can speak to that. But if you have a guy who's like extreme oppo and is just always trying to go over there, is that just as easy to manipulate as someone who's extreme pull and is always trying to pull the ball?
Oh yeah, it's very similar. It's the same type thing. Like guys who are dead pulled, you have to like hit a specific spot. The way that they counteract that without like trying to go oppo or making that part of their situation is like just not chasing the pitch that they can't pull, and they figure out what they can't pull, and then they make you hit that spot over and over again. Like Isaac Paredes, he does that well, and he doesn't swing and miss in the zone. So like the opposite of that is also true. Like if a guy's trying to go oppo all the time, you just hammer them in until they make the adjustment. The thing is though, I like the think oppo and then catch stuff out front and pull breaking balls and such. We're hearing that. I believe Mason Wynn made that comment. The opposite way, he's like, I'm trying to pull the ball in the air, but then just like take balls the other way that I'm later on, like fastballs away. That's usually how the approach works. But for Lowe, like he's playing first base, he's not pulling the ball. Like you're simply going to have more power pull side anyways. And if you can't pull at all, you're also not going to create the type of production that your position calls for, and that's going to like you're just struggle. You're like a couple months of struggling out from just like not going to be considered for that job anymore. Like it's just the way that it is.
Right, because if he could be doing everything he's doing right now and be like a plus glove corner outfielder and probably still be in the big leagues.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the defensive component is definitely part of it. I think he'll probably get another shot or two. He's still in arbitration, so I don't know that somebody will pick him up for the $10 million. He might clear waivers, actually. Do you think somebody will pick him up for the stretch run?
I think someone will pick him up once he clears waivers. Yeah, I don't think they're going to pay the prorated $10.3 million for the rest of the season. I think they'll use him as a lefty bat off the bench. Like the Brewers at one point, Jake Bauers was their lefty off the bench. If you're looking at Bauers versus Lowe, then that's maybe an upgrade where you feel better about Lowe. Defensively, his numbers have fallen off. I know defensive metrics at first base can be a little bit noisy and unreliable
but they've never
anyway.
Been good, but
yeah, so that might be the other limiting factor for him too. Is like for a team that might prioritize defense, they may be less interested in taking that flyer.
And they're building to the future, and their infield defense is bad, and they have to push somebody to first base because they can't hack it somewhere else at some point, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really make sense to clog up first base with league average player at best, who costs this much money and it isn't good defensively. Like, I think I understand it from the Nationals' point of view, but I do think that somebody will pick him up.
As Dylan Cruz goes, 14.5% barrel rate in the 45 games he's played this year, popped 7 homers, stole 11 bases. Slash line is ugly at 196, 266, 354, but I wouldn't be surprised if he played pretty well down the stretch and had some momentum going into 2026. That's the hope, at least, for Dylan Cruz. Some good stuff happening under the hood in year 2 before this lengthy stint on the IL. Let's stay in the NL East. Let's check in on the Phillies. It's been a while since we did a deep dive on this team. Are they the best team in baseball, as our friend Joe Sheehan suggested with his ranking by putting them atop that list earlier this week? The lineup is very good, but not necessarily what we'd expect based on reputation.
12th on the year by WRC Plus?
Yeah. Like they're 8th in WOBA, 12th in WRC Plus, and when you start to think about runs, the erosion of skills for guys like Nick Castellanos and JT Realmuto, you look at what they've been able to get from Kepler and Stott, well below average so far this year. It's not quite the Phillies lineup we're accustomed to. The strength is the pitching. Starting pitching has been well built and performed exceptionally well all season. They've tried to fortify the bullpen with the Joan Duran addition at the trade deadline. I think that's huge for them. Like, do you look at the Phillies lineup right now and say, it's kind of sinking closer to average, or do you expect some of the underperforming veterans to push things back in the right direction between now and the postseason? Because I think the way they do it, like they could be the best team in baseball. I think they have a case for it. The way they do it is just a little bit different than we saw them even 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that, Trey Turner is pretty important for them. In the last month, Schwarber's had a 181 WRC plus and been white hot, and we'll get to him in a second. But Bryce Harper has been turning around a little bit, 138 WRC plus. It's like a 304 OBP, but the power's back, and that's pretty important. Real Muto and Marsh and Stott have been sort of like oscillating between pretty good and above average. So they give your lineup depth. Turner needs to be, I think, a little bit more dynamic at the top of the order to make this go. And I think they got put into the corner a little bit contract-wise with Castellanos. He's at a 38 WRC plus in the last month. He chases a lot. I know that he can run into a homer at a time when you need it. And maybe the defensive metrics are a little unfair to him, but we've circled the outfield as a place that they could improve all, up to the deadline all season long. And it's partially because of what projections think of Nick Castellanos. So right now you've got like one outfielder that I think is really definitively above average. And Bader was an okay acquisition, but I don't know that I think they maybe could have swung a little for the fences there a little bit better. Maybe even somebody like Laureano or something, gotten some more thump. But I think they were concerned about defense as well. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is if Turner is a dynamic force at the top of the order, then this lineup goes 6 or 7 deep with, speed and on base and contact and power. And then, if you have a hole or two at the bottom, most teams do. And I think it could be an above average offense. But Turner, it matters a little bit what Turner does, going forward.
I agree wholeheartedly with that sentiment. I think that Turner is maybe a linchpin in this conversation because he can be a little bit erratic. We see what Schwarber's doing, though, with his season. All right, he's a run producer. That's why he's not doing the leadoff thing as much anymore. And then they still have Bryce Harper, and they still have these guys like you mentioned, like Castellanos and Real Muto. Like they're like, yes, their skill set is on the decline. I mean, they're getting older, but at the same time, like they're not huge fluctuations in their play with the opportunity with the past record of coming up big in spots and getting hot for a while because they're veteran guys. It's still like, I think the fluctuation in these guys' play, their entire roster all the way up is like you kind of get what you expect, and even then worse than what you expect isn't like astronomically worse or like to where there's no value there. So there is value, I think, to being a rock steady team that like knows what to expect, knows what the lineup's going to generally look like, know when they're going to play, when they're not going to play. That I think pays off later in the season when you go on a run and then get into the playoffs. And then they have their starting rotation, which they are. That the plan was to lean on them really heavily, I think. Anyways, I mean, I think that they knew that was one of their major strengths, if not their best strength, and it is proven out to be still a major strength. And that if they go deep into the playoffs and make a run at this thing, it's going to be on the backs of the Cristopher Sanchez's and the Zach Wheelers. That's what's going to be the key to me.
Yeah, Wheeler just keeps doing Zach Wheeler stuff. Perennial Cy Young contender, an ace with a capital A. Cristopher Sánchez has become a legitimate co-ace in this rotation. I mean, you look back at the past calendar year, 2.40 ERA. You look back at the last 3 seasons combined, he's top 10 in WAR. And he did that with one season in which he was only a starter for like half the year. So it's really impressive. And I think Sánchez is a guy that I just sort of just missed on as far as seeing how good he was. I think now I'm finally realizing this is like a top 15, top 20 fantasy guy, still with an up arrow potentially, despite the ballpark. And some of the characteristics that make him really effective are similar to Framber Valdez in that he gets a lot of outs on the ground, and he's missing enough bats now to really kind of propel the value even higher. What I'm surprised by, I guess, when I look at just this overall body of work is just that he's got really only 3 pitches. Like I would expect him to be a wider mix guy given the way that he does it. So what is it about Sánchez that makes him so difficult for opposing hitters to deal with? I mean, part of it's got to be extension. Like he's 6'6". He's near the top of the league in extension. So it's a little bit funky. And I was watching some video. Here's one I'm throwing a changeup to Bobby Witt Jr. He starts on the third base side, but he's so long-limbed. Like he still gets out pretty far across, and like everything coming in at you, especially when he throws inside, you see hitters freeze all the time on 2-seamers inside because it looks like it's going to come in and hit him, and he finds ways to just live on the inside. It's like he's got great command inside, outside, and down. So when you pair the sinker that he throws a ton and that excellent changeup together, those 2 pitches alone with the command that he has carry him very far.
Yeah, I was just writing up my rankings for tomorrow, and Framber, does not have the same command. I think Framber may have maybe a wider mix in that the curve and the change are both really, really good. And, he uses that breaking ball a lot, and he commands the breaking ball well. But the fastball command is not always there for Framber. I had this chart for where Sánchez throws the ball. Now that means he's throwing the ball basically front door. He's throwing front door sinkers to righties, right? Because he's a lefty, so that ball's coming back to the middle of the zone. So he's throwing it in on them, and it's coming back in for called strikes, basically. So if he's front dooring these things, that means he has great command of it, and he keeps it all down. He does the occasional high one just to change eye levels, but I think it is command that separates him. The other thing that I noticed when I was looking at platoon splits is that his sinker is so good that, it's like a 144 stuff plus against lefties, that it's still good against righties. Like if you're like, it's worse than it is against lefties because that's just how sinkers work, but it's still good. So it's still a 110 WRC, 110 stuff plus sinker against righties. So, that's still a great place to start. And I think you're right that command is a big part of it. Also, along that extension thing, when I looked at extension and release and arm angle, it is a little bit of a unique pairing. The only pitchers that are anything like him are Jacob Lopez and who did you also say? Sean Manaea. But Sean Manaea is dropped even lower. So really the best comp for him is Jacob Lopez. It's this 30-degree arm angle with 7-foot extension. There's not a lot of pitchers like that in baseball.
And Sánchez throws harder than Lopez too.
That's true.
Yeah. One big reason for how Cristopher Sánchez, who might be my favorite pitcher now to watch, the way he approaches hitters is honestly, him and Skubal have there's a lot of similarities there. Without the four seam fastball, but let's just substitute the changeup four seam for changeup sinker in this situation. They both have elite pitches, but his sinker and his changeup are very elite for those type of pitches. They drop a lot more than anyone else's at those velocities as well. But in the last couple of years, having seen him be that swing guy throwing 92, 93, he seemed very like compact and clean mechanics, and it doesn't look like he's really reaching out there to get that extension, but he has it because he's a tall guy. He added velocity, and it's very clear he did it on purpose, and he's got some hip-shoulder separation work. He closes his body off a little bit more. He's a little bit more closed when he on his plant foot, so he gets more torque that way, and he's added 3 miles an hour in 2 years. Like that is not easy to do. That is really impressive. He's well above average now. And then he is also, especially halfway through last year, which was also a very good year, but this one arguably is much more dominant, in my opinion. We're really seeing the optimized version of him. The arm angle hasn't changed, but the spin axis on both the changeup and the fastball or the sinker have dropped about 15 minutes on the clock, giving it just a little bit more depth. And so he's added depth on both pitches, 2 inches of depth on both pitches from last year to this year. And I think that is where he's getting a lot of ground balls, but that's where the heavy swing and miss is going, because moving. Basically, what he did was he seam shifted. He's always seam shifted. He's a little bit supinated.
So it's grip alteration, you think?
I think what it is literally hand position dropped a little bit, and what now that spin axis, the one he already had, the seam shifting had, it's now spinning like what a kick change. You're trying to kick a kick change sideways off an axis to get the air to push it down. So you're trying to get depth. He's doing that with both the sinker and his changeup. So now, like, he's throwing what other guys are throwing as a kick change. It's just his changeup that he's always thrown. He just dropped the axis just a tiny bit to where now it's functioning like a kick change. Now it's more depth, so he's getting two plane instead of just the sink. And that has been, the run. And that has been, I think, the key to how nasty he has now become. Last year he was good, and he had that command, and he was getting guys to ground out, and he was top of the league in that. But he wasn't quite like taking over games like he is now, to the point where when you get in the groove and you say, I could say change up here, and I still think he would swing over the top of it because it's moving more than he thinks it's going to move. I think that slight and I don't even know if he necessarily did it on purpose. It could have been something he did in spring training. That's something that happens. Like, your hand position's a little lower because you're not in shape yet. And maybe they were just like, that's really good, stay right there, and he kept it. Like, it's that subtle. It doesn't seem like that needed to be on purpose, because it's kind of within the regular deviation of these things goes through a season, but that combined with the additional velocity. So he's throwing it his sinker harder, and it's dropping 2 more inches. Like, that's how you get a pitch from good to one of the best out there.
Yeah, and I think it just pairs so well with that changeup too. I mean, it's like an ideal combination, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if there are other young pitchers that, do anything similar that, could take this leap in terms of, young pitchers with good ground ball rates. You're looking for somebody who could add a little bit of velo, maybe. Who like, I guess Jack Kohanowitz is somebody where, there are some of the same building blocks, at least with the sinker. It's just that he just hasn't really put forth a secondary pitch that's on the same level. Maybe Kumar Rocker. If I don't know if it's velo that he needs to add, but maybe a better change or something. Is there anybody that you look across baseball and be like, oh, that could be, like a future Cristopher Sánchez?
That's interesting. No. I would need to look around.
I just have it sorted by ground ball rate, and I'm just starting there. Quinn Priester, got the sinker slider, but I don't really see that same upside unless, maybe if he just added 2 or 3 ticks over the next couple of years.
I think in two years ago, though, we wouldn't have predicted that Cristopher Sánchez could do this. So it's like, what's the next, what is that thing that clicks? What's the thing that shows? That's the funny thing about analytics. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I think there are the benefits of operating in terms of numbers are vastly outweigh any cons, but like there is a couple things where sometimes guys do things that there was no evidence of before. like it's a pitch or there's something that naturally they do well that they've never tried. We have no data on, and so you'll never be able to predict those things. And those things happen all the time in baseball. And for Cristopher Sánchez, like I would be like, oh, this stuff's moving. He is optimized right now, throwing 92, 93. Like I don't see how he could do more. And then someone somewhere was like, actually that hip isn't moving at all.
Yeah, right.
That a little bit. It's a velo. And then he's like, okay. And he just tried it. He looks the same. He looks like he's slightly more closed and everything's just, but it's much, much, much more powerful.
Yeah. I think Johanowitz, as bad as he looks right now, I mean, that's the thing though. Sánchez was pretty decent. He was decent. And it was just, we didn't know that there was another level there. Whereas Johanowitz has not been decent.
No, he's just trying to get to that level, like surviving, staying in the rotation, proving that he's a big league starter for multiple seasons, right? And I do think the organizational differences too, like Phillies versus Angels, like there's a much greater level of trust in what the Phillies are doing right now, and for good reason. So if Johanowitz is going to do that, I don't know if it's going to happen in Anaheim either. So yeah, I think to Trevor's point, I mean, there's just some stuff that changes that you don't get warning signs. You can pretend, or you can try as much as you want to look for reason to believe it was going to happen, and there was really little evidence unless you could see something like that hip. I don't have the eyes to see that. Like, that is something that I cannot do.
I think about it also, like in terms of like Dustin May going to Boston and throwing the cutter. And now all of a sudden, all of his like stuff numbers on all of his fastballs are better. I was looking at that and I was thinking, like, I think that, if I had more time and the wherewithal, it wouldn't be that hard to take an existing stuff model and then be like, okay, can you optimize this guy's pitch mix, given the model, and have like basically have it pump out like a optimized stuff plus or a peak projection, like if we did these things, this could happen,
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what teams do, right? Because they always have a plan, and in order for them, when they're like making a trade for somebody, like they're making a trade for Dustin May, and the Dodgers want X or Y, right? So they have to establish some sort of value for Dustin May. They have to be like, this is what Dustin May is worth to us. And do they just take results on the field and say, okay, that's what he's worth, we're going to pay that, except they think he can be better than that, right? So on some level, for them to like pull the trigger on the deal, they had to know what they think Dustin May could be worth, like what he could do. And for that, they have to look to basically an optimized pitch projection, where you're just like, what is the best Dustin May could be given even his pitches you have now? Now you're also talking, Trevor, about this idea, like, what about a pitch he doesn't even throw yet? Like, how do we know how good he could be if he threw this other pitch that he doesn't even throw yet?
You could model it, but you also don't know with certainty that the pitcher could throw it.
He can actually throw it.
You might not
you would model it. Then you
Jack
have to test
Johanowitz
it.
a kick change. Would he be great? It's like,
Yeah.
Yes, but can Jack Johanowitz throw a kick change? Especially since the kick change itself looks really complicated to me. Like I couldn't do it.
It's actually not as complicated as you think it is. I've learned a lot more about it now, having actually talked to the guys who have been pushing it hard.
But I've held the ball in my hand that way, and it just doesn't
feel comfortable,
powerful, or comfortable.
Yeah, it's weird putting pressure on a certain type of your finger, but like the kick part itself is just the axis you're kicking. You're just trying to get it off of.
You're actually just throwing it. You're just trying to throw it hard, right? Like, you're just trying to throw it just comes off of that way.
What trying to throw it hard does for most guys is has them, and they naturally kick it on accident. So like that was the problem before, and now it's the strength for the pitch.
I see.
So which I found fascinating, but maybe I don't know.
Let's talk about some bats again for a minute. Kyle Schwarber in particular, like he's having a career year. Like at age 32, that makes sense. Like that's exactly how hitters age. They get to their early 30s and they're just better than ever. But really, 4 of his 5 best seasons have come since his age 28 season. What's changed for Schwarber over the years, and seeing what he's doing right now? Like, how do you even begin to try and pitch to him? Because it seems like he will hit anything and everything that you do not locate where you want to locate it.
I bet you what's changed his anticipation. You know, what he's done that's been so good is he's kept the bat speed up. So he's got elite bat speed and he's got elite decision making. So what could get better over time is just, I've got you all in my book. Like I know what you're about to do. I faced you 8 times, Trevor May. You're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. You know, and unless the other pitcher is like, crap, I did this and this and this, I got to throw him my 4th worst pitch, just my 4th best pitch, just to like, you know, do something different here. I think that what's changed is the brain game, like his anticipation of what's coming.
So he's a crafty hitter, more like a David Ortiz type hitter. And that's what's enabling him to continue finding these new levels.
That's a great example, actually.
Yeah. And from talking to him, like he's developed some coping strategies for his like, you know, check this out. Here's his exit velocities. That's like, what I want to do as a pitcher is I want to slow his bat down. Well, look at the slowest component there. It's like a 76 mile an hour bat speed high and away, which, you know, like that's not slow, by the way. So he's developed some coping mechanisms where he's able to, I think you made reference, Trevor, to the idea that he might hit you a 117 mile an hour oppo, you know, missile to the opposite field. That's what he can do with 76 mile an hour bat speed. And that's not even his best foot forward. So you could see from that, though, that you want to keep it away from inside. And the only place that you can live is off the strike zone. So he basically hit his back foot. That's why I have this on the side here. This is knuckle curves, and sliders. If you get it out of the zone and below the zone and towards his feet, you can maybe get some takes or some whiffs there. And then, so I think the basic approach would be high and away fastballs and then back foot sliders, where you're trying to basically hit his back foot. But don't make a mistake.
Yeah.
Is that a game plan you would go comfortably try and execute against him, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, that is what I've done in the past. You know, even like one thing he does do really well is remember how you pitched him in the past. Usually it's because it's all he does is hit now, right? I think that's a big reason for him to be. I think he's found this is what I do really well. This is how I prepare. This is how I stay healthy and fresh, so I can swing the bat really hard every night. I don't have to worry about the field. I can play it. It'll be funny. I'll do it if you want, and I'm not worried about it. But like we all know what it is, right? I'm gonna fall down probably. And the weirdest I think point of that is like he goes, "Yeah, you put me out there, but you know, I still have competition for the least valuable outfielder, and that's with Castellanos." So like it makes it like not such a big deal when there's another guy that is just as bad. So
it's not me and 2 center fielders out here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not, you know, we know what this is happening, why I'm out here. We're already doing it with right and left field. So like it is what it is. But anyway, to face him though, staying the fastball up and away is definitely better than up and in. If you're going to sit and pepper him with something, you want to try to hit that spot whichever one is most comfortable for you. But in reality, whatever pitches you can throw to the up corners, nestle them up in the corners of all 4 parts of the zone, like that is your best bet. When you go look at his damage zone, it covers the entire box except for these little slivers in every corner, because those pitches just, you know, they're either too far or too close, or they're just great pitches. Those are the best pitches. Yeah. Every single guy on the planet struggles with those if they're hit every time. Corners, and so he's really just dialed himself in on knowing what sequences could be like, getting his A swing off all the time and taking advantage of the misses that everyone misses. Like even the best pitches we make oftentimes aren't exactly where we wanted them to go. Like that's not really what we were thinking. So like you miss a couple inches in and out or whatever, and you know who else does that same thing? Harper's another guy who will go push and take. He remembers everything you did, and he covers the center of the zone. All mistakes are covered, and he'll just deal with the guys who are dotting and trying to get deeper in account, maybe draw a walk, maybe get something to land in. He knows he's not going to take them deep, but that's not the goal. Like, they're just veteran guys, I think, and Schwarber has gotten to the point now where he's not leading off. There's people on base more. You're a little bit more scared. You're a little bit more worried about that 2-run homer over the solo shot. And so those mistakes are happening more often, and he's just missing them less. So that combination gives you what you have with Kyle Schwarber, and you got to get ahead, and get ahead in different ways. That's how especially if I faced him more than once in a series, I'd be like, I threw a first pitch changeup, or I threw a fastball up and away. I'm going to throw a slider because I don't think he's going to shoes out of his shoes on the slider. And oftentimes he did just kind of like take it because he's like, of all the options, I didn't think a slider was there, and that's not what I was looking for. And it was maybe a mistake or maybe not a great pitch, but I got away with one. But now I'm 0-1, and I can just stay on those edges and go back to what I was doing. That's kind of how you have to work. But it is weird. He's scary because he could hit it back at you, and that's terrifying because you're not going to catch it. It's going to catch you. And but like there's also this unspoken thing, like he knows what you're doing, you know what he's doing, and it's like he's like, can you like dance around the edge of the ring, but if you come in here, I'm going to get you, like type of thing. And that's where baseball is really fun, because it just comes down to like skill on skill. You're not playing chess anymore. You're just like, physically, am I better than you? And that's what it's like pitching Harper, or not Harper, Schwarber.
It kind of sounds like Harper is like pitching like Sam.
Maybe Harper a little bit too, yeah.
Look even a little less swing and miss, so maybe one notch harder when he's feeling 100% and doing everything.
Schwarber's a great player and an all-star. Bryce Harper is in the running for the MVP every year. That's the difference.
Yeah,
I did a quick little search where I looked for players, right-handed pitchers that throw backdoor breaking balls a lot. So these are breaking balls that are ball to strike, breaking balls to lefties. And, at the top of the list is Jake Irvin, but Dylan Cease, Dustin May, Nick Pivetta are on here. And Nick Pivetta caught my eye because I thought, hey, here's a guy who throws fastballs at the top of the zone. He throws backdoor breaking balls, and he throws back foot breaking balls. This is the tiniest sample of all time, but he's 1 for 11 with like 5 Ks against Nick Pivetta. So, and this is the kind of thing, though, that I know that I just said what he did against Nick Pivetta in particular, but if you made this a larger thing and you said, how does he do against all these pitchers that have these characteristics, you might actually find a pitcher that he has trouble with. And I think it would be somebody who is very happy throwing his fastballs at the top of the zone, and has good breaking balls that he can play in and out at the bottom of the zone.
So just thinking about Schwarber being really the far and away best hitter in the lineup right now, at least by performance. Harper being a notch below, but capable of getting on that level if he, again, feels good throughout the remaining 6+ weeks of the season. How good is this lineup really? How good is this team? Are they the best team in baseball? I think they're in that conversation, no doubt about that. Do you think they belong atop those lists? Are they the team to beat in the NL, even though they are not the team that currently has the best record in the NL?
I've been thinking about this a lot since I said the Brewers weren't the best team in baseball. And I don't know. I don't know who the best team in baseball is. It's not obvious to me. I think a lot of times we've been able to say like, oh, the Dodgers, and they're the favorites going in. But if you had me to pick favorites, I just did this for the American League where I was like, hey, the American League is just wide open all the way up and down. We were talking about Boston with the Boston Red Sox, Jed, yesterday, and it's just like, are the Blue Jays like far and away better than the Boston? I can't say that, and I think I would probably say the same for the National League. Actually, why not the Padres as the best team in baseball? They make a ton of contact. They have the best bullpen in baseball. Is their rotation that bad? The Phillies have the best rotation, maybe the best pitching staff in baseball. But the lineup's not that great. The Mets are somewhere in between. I think it's really hard to anoint a best team in baseball right now.
I think it's
a good parody.
Thing. Yeah,
that's good parody right there.
Good parody. Like it feels like the top end of the NL is a little better than the AL right now. Like you'd take if you said, "Hey, which league do you think is more likely to win the World Series? A team from the NL or a team from the AL?" I think most of us would be like, "We like the NL better." Mm-hmm. You're covering the Dodgers, the Padres, Phillies, Brewers. You get that whole group. Sure, like I feel great about my chances. we know it doesn't always work out that way. But the gaps,
But even within it, the gaps between them, even within the groups, you're like,
I think the gaps are always smaller than we want them to be, but even this year it feels like everything's a little more compressed because we don't have those runaways at the top. And some of that's just been injuries that have also like kept the Dodgers' projection going into the season was ridiculous, and they've been about as injured as they reasonably could be, and that has helped keep them on the same sort of level as the other
I
top
could see a
teams
month
in the
from
league.
now we're saying the Dodgers are clearly the best team in baseball because Mookie has figured something out and the pitching staff is all back healthy and they've figured out who's their closer is, and you know what I mean? Like there are still, that's a lot of questions though, you know? Like I think it's possible that the Padres and the Padres and Phillies have the best, you know, arguments for best team in baseball. I mean, Brewers are right there, but the power outage, I'm just not sure I believe in their power, you know?
All right, I got an
What's
eye test for both of you. Look at lineup A. Take a look, study it carefully. Names have been removed to protect the identities of the players involved. So just take a look.
That goes what, 10, 11 deep?
Yeah, and the top line, I mean, that's a guy that's only got a little over 100 plate appearances, but generally out of the regulars, you're talking 7 or 8 guys that are league average or better in lineup A. And then this is lineup B. Like, take a look at lineup B. Top player there has played a lot more with a 159 WRC plus, but you only have a total of 6 guys with a 100 or better, and one of those guys is a very small sample player, and 2 are kind of like semi-regulars based on how much they've played so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the Brewers over the Phillies lineup, I guess.
And that's exactly what we're looking at. Lineup A was the Brewers, lineup B was the Phillies. There's a lot of its perceptions about how teams do what they do. The Brewers
and
will
who the
forever
players are.
you know? Yeah, and it's easier. I think it's easier to tell yourself the story that the guys that have been there several times in October are going to be much more comfortable in October. I don't know how true that is, but it sure seems like something that's true. That the difference between, you know, Caleb Durbin and Nick Castellanos in a critical spot in October is one where you're like, I think I feel better about Castellanos if my season's on the line. But like, or JT Real Muto, you kind of go through even the struggling guys are like, yeah, they've been there several times. Like, does that actually matter, or is it just a thing that we pretend matters?
It matters. I think it matters. I think it matters most though, but when both are mechanically sound, right? Both are like, one's just struggling because they're making maybe some bad decisions or struggling because of some bad luck or whatever. I'll take that guy. Even if stats have a little bit of a gap, I'll take that guy because it is that kind of big thing. But like, if you're out of whack and you're just like, can't your swings off, whatever, it doesn't matter how under control or like how mentally tough you or mentally established you are or how much experience you have. If you because when you choose to swing, it's still not doing the thing you needed to do, then it does that's when it negates it completely. But if you put them both on terms of the optimization in terms of mechanically and physically, if they're on the exact same playing field, I will take the guy with experience or has operated in that situation over the guy who's just going to be thrust into it every time, just because that is a real thing, and you see different versions of people be in the playoffs versus the regular season for that reason. It is just when for some reason sometimes guys can just put like the importance of their ABs. It's just like, yeah, it's cool all season, and then suddenly it matters so much more in their head, and they're like, I don't know how to deal with this, and they just disappear. That's a real thing. I know for a fact that all relievers, and I'll never forget the day that Seth Lugo said it to me in his first playoff series in 2022. I go, hey, man, congratulations. First thing I said, because he was going to become a free agent, I was like, hey, congratulations. Your stats are locked for the season. He's because he was worried about free. Like, that's just always there. And he didn't realize that. I go, are you pumped? You excited? And then he just like paused. He was quiet. He was like, I just don't want it to be my fault. And I go, yes, that's exactly what it is. Every single one of us are out there like, just don't have me be the one that blows it. Like, that sounds selfish or whatever, but like, that's always going to be there. Every single guy has some version of that. Like, hey, like, you know, if I don't play well, I don't play. Like, I got to stay even kill here. It's still the game, and I still got to grind it out each day. But if I can avoid that big moment where it's all my fault, or it seems like all my fault for years into the future, I would love that. And that is just not there during the regular season. It's not. So it's a real thing.
Yeah, I don't know how you prepare for that until you get a chance to be in it. You know, it just seems
just
like
jump.
you can't simulate that.
That's what I always told myself. Just jump into the pool, man. Just go. Same thing as always. Run through the door and it's on and you're going. We're going. We're on the roller coaster. Enjoy it.
I mean, when you look it up by the numbers, I think, experience that doesn't like move the needle, but in terms of like, correlations to winning in the postseason or stuff. But the problem is the postseason, it's a small sample by itself, you're reducing everything to one year, and so like when you start looking at it, there's almost nothing that correlates to success in the postseason if you look at it like all the way wide, because you're
where you need to get enough
collection
data.
of a couple,
there's no
it's
correlation.
just like a couple of games it's like a collection of games every year, and it's different personnel every year, and I know that Bill James has his postseason predictor, but it seems nonsensical to me because he's counting up like number of triples, and I'm like, that number of triples by the team is going to be a predictor of success in the postseason. Like I don't understand. Like if you care about speed, then put a speed metric in. Like I don't know what we're measuring here.
Was there
triples.
any gaps during the season where they didn't hit a triple for 3 days?
Yeah.
Because that could very easily happen in a wild card series.
Like
that too, right? Like
base running value. Does base running value correlate to the postseason success? I mean, I don't know.
Tried everything. I tried everything that I thought made sense. I didn't try triples.
I think health. Health is probably the one thing. The healthiest.
That's a big piece of the chaos too. Is like you can like I tried like September record being hot going in, right? But September record didn't correlate to October records because May records don't correlate to June records. You know what I mean? Like it's because you could have, especially the old, like remember the old system where there would be teams. The Brewers used to do this, where they would just like call up a ton of relievers and then
expanded rosters.
And just have like 15 relievers.
Yeah,
and so it's like
those days.
They'd kill it in September, and they're like, oh well, now we need to choose like 5 relievers. So it's like, there's all these little things, and then rules change, and then, we've changed the way the playoffs are played every year. So it's, it's different. It's like Bernie Williams has the record for home runs in the postseason or something.
I don't think he does anymore. I think he did.
But there was for a long time.
The real air quotes, the real record when the postseason was the same length for probably a couple decades. Maybe he had it, but I think it was Randy Arozarena has it now, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does.
Doesn't Jeter have like a full season of stats in playoffs?
Yeah, Pettit has 25 playoff starts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So like, there's all these weird things that happen and like what I found was, like basically your lineup is super important, and other people have found that power like sticks around more. Like if your team depends on power, it retains more of its offense in the postseason. So it is dumb because it sounds just like pitching and defense wins championships. But if you ask me what wins in the playoffs, I would say contact and power. And so it's interesting to look at the Brewers and be like, well, you at least got one of those,
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you count guys like Andrew Vaughn. What do you actually statistically think of Andrew Vaughn right now?
Yeah, how much power does Caleb Durbin actually have?
Right. That might not matter as much, but then it's like, does Rhys Hoskins matter more to the Brewers? He's been on the IL for the last month. Is he really important because he's got so much power? I don't know. It just leads you down to these other like weird questions. Like he's not even part of what they're doing right now. His injury opened the door for Vaughn to play in the first place. If that didn't happen, we might not even see Andrew Vaughn in the big leagues yet. There's all sorts of wrinkles like that. So yeah, man, it's just different. Playoff baseball is just flat out different, and it's impossible to predict, or borderline impossible.
I think the Phillies would look a lot better if they'd had some of these, fun surprises that the Brewers have had. Like if Yohan Rojas had been like a even 100 WRC hitter. If they had just found another outfielder and been like, oh, Max Kepler didn't work out. Well, we've got Justin Crawford. I don't think he's ready or anything, but like, if they just had somebody that they could bring out of their minor leagues to sort of replace even a league average player, they would be in a better position right now. Because right now it's still the bottom of the lineup is still a problem in Philadelphia.
You got Weston Wilson in very, very limited playing time, running like a 113 WRC plus. You got a couple little ones like that, but you're right. It's not like prominent pieces of what they've done to this point. Let's get to our next segment. 4 starting pitchers we are intrigued by. We talked a little bit about Hurston Waldrop. I think that was on Tuesday's show. You mentioned that Waldrop had changed a little bit, and I'm curious as to just how much that's changed the floor for him, because previously it looked like it was splitter only, nothing else that really worked, and maybe like a high probability that he was going to end up in a relief role if he couldn't find a better mix to work as a starter.
Yeah. I mean, it's an old story, I think, is that he added a sinker and a cutter, and instead of throwing 40% bad four seams, now he's throwing 10% bad four seams and 15% okay cutters and 20% pretty good sinkers. But I think the one thing that is the through line for all of these pitchers, and I wanted to just throw this up, just so you can see why we picked these guys. So Hurston Waldrop, Jack Perkins, Ryan Bergert, Noah Cameron, they are all intriguing young pitchers. They all are, have roles and have some opportunity in front of them, reasons we like them. They all have bad four seams. And your definition of bad can change a little bit. Like Ryan Bergert's he locating his well, and Noah Cameron's locating his well. But in terms of stuff, none of these 4 have even an average four-seam fastball. And so I think that does, limit their upside. But what we can evaluate today, I think, is the rest of the arsenal and how much that can make up for that lack of four-seam, and who we think, might be able to succeed despite the poor four-seam. And I'm pretty into Waldrop here with, the 100 stuff plus sinker. That's, I think, the best fastball on this list across the board, other than maybe Noah Cameron's cutters is close. So Waldrop now with the 3 fastball mix and a really dominant splitter. I think that there's a real chance here that he's the best of this foursome.
Out of this group, Trevor, who do you think has the brightest short and long-term future?
I tend to agree pretty much. I think Waldrop probably has the best chance, especially with just his feel for that many pitches, his feel for just pitching in general. That it is pretty impressive. I think Berger is interesting because of how well he commands his 4 pitches already, which could give him longevity. Maybe not the most nasty guy, but I think in terms of just like, I always believe that location plus can improve over time more than stuff plus can, especially at the big league level. And Jack Perkins is interesting. He's an A. His sweeper four seam or his sweeper and fastball combination pretty good. He throws hard. He throws a little kick change. His command on those pitches are pretty even better than I thought was anticipating when I went and looked at it. So he's up there for me too. But I think that just in terms of the total package, also Waldrop's there with the Braves. They have a pretty good track record recently of having young guys come up and develop into members of that rotation that are going to hang around. And I don't think that past he hasn't thrown that much. I mean, I know last year was a disaster, and he also, interestingly enough, he's throwing his sinker almost 2 miles an hour harder than his four-seam fastball, which tells me someone in there.
That's his natural. That's his natural fastball. Is that what that tells you? That's his slot.
Well, that and someone's like, "Hey, your four seam stinks," and so he's like, he just throws it to throw it, and then it's like, "Okay, get back to the sinker." Right. So that might be a conviction thing too, to where they've told him it's so good that he's like, "All right, I'll let it rip," and it is.
So sinker splitter. What are the role models for him? Bergert was interesting in this respect. There's a piece on Fangraphs by Michael Rosen that says, in at least one respect, Ryan Bergert looks like an ace. What he does that not a lot of people do is that he throws a a high spin efficiency four seamer, like that has a lot of ride. But then he also throws a sweeper that's fairly hard. It's 84 miles an hour. And the difference between his sweeper and his four seam is only 10 miles an hour. Other guys that have carry and throw sweepers have bigger differences. So Burgert has something in common with Shota Imanaga, Cade Povich, Chris Bubich. And I think that's kind of interesting. Some of these guys are outperforming the Stuff Plus model. And it is kind of hard to have something where you're behind the ball up here, right? And you're showing carry and then able to also hit the sweeper, right? Like mechanically, you were able to do that, right? You had carry and you were able to throw the sweeper, but it's not easy, right?
No, it's not easy, and I couldn't throw it hard like that. Mine was comparatively fairly slow. Mine was like 81. My fastball was 95. So
because it's so different from your normal mechanics, you're that why,
or where the pressure on the ball is. Like you're not used to. You're the least behind the ball on a four seam. Like you are really on a sweeper, you are wrapping.
Yeah.
It feels like you're like throwing a frisbee.
And carry fastball guys are really behind the ball. Like really
we're very used to heavy pressure from your fingers. You're feeling like you are really slinging it. And though you may be choked, like you may have to grip it tightly to command it. When it spins off your hand, like you're not behind it. You are on as far onto the side of the ball as you can possibly be. So it's a really distinct difference. And I think that is what kills velocity. But in reality, and you're also thinking movement over velocity for the first time too, because even gyro sliders, you're still trying to throw that hard.
Yes.
Right. And you it's like the only pitch I ever had where like the velocity component just left my brain. Even with changeups, like I was never trying to slow my changeup down a lot. I was just trying to get it to look different. So that's what it came down to.
Yeah. I think Perkins, I think Burger, they're all very interesting. The one I think I'm least behind is Noah Cameron, just because it's such like the velo is so low, but he's also the lefty in this group, and lefties are rare. And I think I shout at the screen sometimes when I watch Cameron and Bubich, where I'm like, swing. I want batters to swing. And they're just watch these big breaking balls come back to the zone and get called strikes. And maybe it's sustainable. I always just feel like somebody's going to figure it out and finally hit him hard. But it hasn't really happened. He's had a couple blowups, but Cameron, I think, looks a lot like there's other lefties that look like him. Bubich looks like him a little bit, where it's like it's slow. It's going to hit the strike zone, and you just don't know when it's going to hit the strike zone.
Yeah, same stuff number as Andrew Abbott, a little worse in terms of location, but always all roads lead back to Andrew Abbott lately with the lefties that we can't quite figure out. But I think with Perkins, just real quick on him, the thing I keep kind of diving into is the stuff is so good. I don't know how much that command is going to improve. I sort of see the benefit being if it does not work for him as a starter, I think he can be a good high leverage reliever. Like he's going to be valuable in some capacity. Yeah. I like that they're giving him some chances to start just in case that command improves to the point where he can be a starter, because that's optimal, and they need that. They need more quality starting pitching in Sacramento, as we talked a bit about on yesterday's show. We need to go. We will talk about Owen Casey and Nolan McLean on our free agent pickups episode on Friday. Get a little sense for how Casey's going to be used, since he's actually in the starting lineup Thursday's matinee against the Blue Jays. But you can find us on Blue Sky. Trevor's I am Trevor May. Eno is Eno Saris. I am DVR. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.